Still waiting. There we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome in to Sports Plus. If you're watching us live on Thursday night or if you're listening on the podcast, I'm Corey Miller here with Frank Cusimano, who is in the studio. We have got quite a bit to talk about. First of all, first things first, let's get to the Cardinals because we're running out of chances to talk about the Cardinals. They are in the midst of their final series here against Milwaukee. Just 5 games left, fighting for a playoff spot. Frank, it's going to come down to maybe even an extra day to make up games against the Tigers. I'm excited to watch how this plays out. The Cardinals recently haven't given me a lot of hope to make me very enthused about their chances here against Milwaukee, but they got a chance, and that's all you can ask for, especially them in this crazy year.
Yeah, losing 2 out of the 3 to the Royals in Kansas City was not inspiring, Corey, but I think their pitching looks pretty good for this weekend. You got KK tonight. You'll have Flaherty, you'll have Wainwright, likely Gomber. You're right, too. The last thing you want to do is go to Detroit on Monday to determine, the seeding for the wild card. And basically, it could be for getting into the postseason. If the season were to end tonight, it would be the Cardinals against the Padres. And the Padres have gotten some bad news lately with Clevenger's situation and with Fernando Tatis Jr. having a really brutal month. So, look, the Padres had a much better season. But if the Cardinals were to face San Diego and their pitching was in order, who knows what could happen?
Cardinals have had good success against the Padres in the playoffs, but it feels like we're coming down the stretch. But like you just said there's still a whole lot to be determined. We don't know who they're going to play. We don't know what the pitching is going to be like. Somebody's got to hit for this team at some point. But to go back to a point I said, I think if you're the Cardinals, you feel good to just even be in this position. When they were in that break of COVID quarantine, I didn't even know if we would even be talking about a postseason. And although it hasn't been pretty, for them to be in the conversation after going through what worse than any other team in the league had to go through, I think that's still pretty impressive.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of the credit belongs with Mike Schilt just kind of keeping things together. I mean, he got Dexter Fowler hitting, then Dexter Fowler leaves. He got KK pitching pretty well, then KK leaves. Carlos Martinez is gone. Miles Michaelis is gone. Jordan Hicks is gone. And yet here they are contending. Now, granted, they're basically a 500 team, but if you can get in the postseason, I think that shows some guts and some courage.
Let's talk about something else. We could see, if you're watching this live, Yadier Molina just got hit 1,999. He could get 2,000 tonight. I think this should be a big deal around baseball, and I don't think it's been talked about as much as it should be. He would be the 12th primary catcher in baseball history to get 2,000 hits. Now, 3,000 is really the magical one, but when you're a catcher, 2,000 is a big deal, and he'd only be the 6th Cardinal to do it all with St. Louis. This is going to be a big deal when it happens, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, so am I. And, when you think about it, I think it's a little over 2,000 games. It's a little over 16,000 innings where the guy, got down in a squat position in 95-degree heat and tried to catch 100-mile-an-hour fastballs and then take 4 at-bats. And, his career offensively is very similar to Ozzie Smith, where you just didn't know initially if he ever was going to be productive. And here he is at age 38, hitting like 270. It's an absolutely amazing existence. I had a long conversation with Tony La Russa, his first manager. And La Russa did something really smart early in his career. There was a time when Yadi was hitting in the low 200s, and there were times to take him out for a pinch hitter, but La Russa felt that I need to show him confidence because one day it's going to pay off for La Russa, it's going to pay off for the organization, and he's going to be a good offensive player. And he didn't strike out that much, even when he was hitting in the low 200s. He made contact, and he's just really developed into a really nice hitter, and it's going to be great to see number 2,000.
It's going to be fun. Saturday should be fun, too. Adam Wainwright's supposed to be on the hill for his last start of the year with Molina behind the plate. It looks like things are trending. Wainwright's having an incredible season, MVP of the team. They'll probably bring him back. Molina, we think they'll be able to get something done, too, there. But there's a real possibility. This could be, on Saturday, the last time we see these guys pair up on the mound and behind the plate with the Cardinals. What do you think about that and next year possibly?
Well, they have to be smart about Molina's contract and about his money. I mean, I think they realized they made a mistake with Matt Carpenter, the 2-year contract extension. Not the exact same situation, but similar. Look, there's nothing more than Bill DeWitt wants than to see Yadier Molina finish his career as a Cardinal. And think about this. There's only 2 Cardinal Hall of Famers who started their careers with the Cardinals and played their entire careers with the Cardinals, and that's Bob Gibson and Stan Musial. So they're going to do everything possible. And I think if Yadi is just reasonable, I think it's going to get done. I feel better about Yadi staying in St. Louis than I do about Alex Pietrangelo staying in St. Louis.
That's a good point. We'll get to that here in a second. Last thing, Cardinals-wise, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but the Cardinals still do have a pretty good percentage chance to make the postseason. They could get some help from some other teams as well. If you have that first match, if you can set your rotation any way you want, you're going Flaherty, Wainwright, Kim, right? Those are your 3 main horses for the postseason.
Without question. Dakota Hudson would have been an interesting option, but we may not see Dakota for a long, long time. But especially, well, you know what? You won't get any games in Busch Stadium where Kim has not allowed a run as a starting pitcher. But, yeah, I'm very comfortable in that. And Jack makes sense, going in game 1, too.
And I think that's why the Cardinals have a chance, because we've watched this whole season. The Padres are a much better team than the Cardinals. They just are. They're going to hit circles around them. But if you have this 3-game playoff, you run into Flaherty, Wainwright, Kim, they're all on, or just 2 of them are on, and you're already home. So I think if the Cardinals get in the playoffs and their pitching is on, they could really be a problem.
Yeah, they got to score at least 1 run, though, with those guys. And with this offense, that's highly debatable.
That's a good point. Let's move on here. Mizzou football, talk some SEC. We haven't talked college football in a long time. Didn't even know if we'd have it this year, but we do. Mizzou starts on Saturday, and it could not be any harder. They open up against Alabama and Nick Saban. This first year, I feel pretty bad for Coach Drinkwitz. Coming right into, he's fired up, saying all the right things. But this guy gets a pandemic dropped on him. He gets an all-SEC schedule that's the hardest in the country dropped on him. It's going to be a rough slog for Mizzou, but I think the guys that are on the team and definitely Coach Drinkwitz are going to learn a lot about themselves this year.
Well, we had Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart, on the radio today, and I thought he brought up a great point. Mizzou is going to have Alabama, then they're at Tennessee, then they're at LSU. And I said, how do you judge it? He goes, you can't judge it on wins and losses. You just judge it on how well they play, how well they execute. It's best case scenario, it's a 4-6 season, maybe a 3-7 season. But it is the most daunting schedule. And, I hope, the only thing I'm worried about is this, is they have a bunch of commitments recruiting-wise. And I don't want a 3-7 season to have a recruit change his mind, or even a 4-6 season. I hope these recruits believe in the process, believe in the man, and know that it's going to be special there one day. But you know what? 18-year-old kids can be fickle, and who knows what could happen when it comes down to signing on the dotted line.
That's a good point, Frank. Yeah, the Mizzou has, I looked it up, I think they have the 21st rated recruiting class in 2021. So we've seen Drinkwitz knows how to talk to these kids, knows how to recruit. We'll see if he can put it together on the field with what he was left over from Barry Odom and a lot of newcomers. And it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be pretty ugly at some times. But I think Mizzou fans know just to deal with it because they think they got the right guy because everything Drinkwitz has said up to this point has been perfect for, I think, what you want to see in a college head coach.
Yep, I'm with you.
Let's move on to the last thing that you mentioned earlier. You feel better about Yadi coming back than Alex Pietrangelo. Let's dive into the latest Pietrangelo news. Reports coming out that him and the Blues are in a stalemate, and the Blues have advised him to go see what he can do on the free agent market. I was really thinking if something was going to get done, it was going to get done quick. And so now I am not very optimistic. I think Alex Pietrangelo is going to be gone, getting more money somewhere else. What do you think?
I think Doug Armstrong has a number in his mind of how high he can go with Alex Pietrangelo. And I'm not sure exactly on the years. We know that he's with the Blues, so the Blues can give him that extra year. I don't know if the Blues will go that extra year, but I think it's somewhere, around $8 million. And I think that other teams are going to offer $9 million, and who knows, even more than that. So Doug Armstrong, I've always said, is the smartest guy in the room, and he has good young defensemen in the organization and on the roster right now. I mean, Colton Parayko should be emerging as a star right now. Vince Dunn is a high risk but very skilled player. So I think they're going to take their best shot, and I don't know if it's going to be enough to get him. If they don't get him, then maybe think about a guy like Kevin Shattenkirk, who's having a nice series with Tampa Bay in the finals, and he's not Alex Pietrangelo, but he also could be a really good player on the power play. I think you just got to be careful. This salary cap's going to be flat. You can't give it all to one guy. The scary thing is this: is if number 91 Vladimir Tarasenko doesn't come back, and Alex Pietrangelo doesn't come back. Well, you got like 4 elite players from your Stanley Cup team. Those 2, Ryan O'Reilly and your goaltender, Jordan Binnington. You've lost half of them. Can you be as good a team? I don't know. Maybe the Blues are going to have to take a step back here next year. We'll see what happens.
That's a good way to look at it. I do think not signing them could open up some interesting opportunities they may not have thought of. Hopefully, I definitely don't think there would be a leadership void. We know there's guys on this team that can step in and fill the role of a captain if it's a Ryan O'Reilly or somebody else. From just a skill perspective, if they don't bring Pietrangelo back, it's going to be apparent out there. But they do have some young guys. I like Nico Mikkola a lot. He's not Alex Pietrangelo, but he's a big guy, I think, who could end up contributing. So we'll have to see how it goes. But right now, I don't think it looks good if you were hoping Alex Pietrangelo was going to come back to St. Louis. Yep. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Sports Plus podcast. We'll be back maybe sooner than next Thursday, talking, depending on what the Cardinals are doing here, if they have to play on Monday or if they're heading to the playoffs. We'll break down who their opponent is and everything you can look for. Thanks for watching if you tuned in live or if you downloaded and listened on our podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for listening. Take it easy, everybody.